Hello and welcome back to Politically Incorrect. I'm Tom Christiano. Well, tonight we have an outstanding panel of local luminaries, and we're going to be talking about primarily Chelmsford issue. With me tonight we have Angie Taranto. How are you, Angie?
I'm great, Tom. How are you?
Good, good, thanks.
Good to be here.
Thank you. It's so great to have you on the show. You know, it's your 23rd time on the show, Angie.
Wow, didn't realize that, Tom.
That's one of the highest of anybody. It shows you how much I like you and how much
Thank
you do
you.
for the town. Because you know, you've been very active in Chelmsford, being on the school committee for so many years in the past.
Right.
Well, how many years was it? Angie?
12.
12 years. That's a long time. And a long time town meeting representative.
Yep.
And past dean. You were dean at the high school for many years, and a teacher probably before
right,
that.
Yeah. Total of 35 years with the school
Really?
system.
That's fantastic. Wow. You don't look that old, Angie, to
Thank
be
you.
having 35 years.
You know
in
what I say? I tell everybody when the kids see me and they say, "Gee, you look great, just like you did." I said, "Formaldehyde works great." Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here
Thank
again,
you.
Angie.
Yeah, good to be here.
And we have my friend Kathy Duffett with us again tonight. How are you, Kathy?
Great, Tom. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, Kathy. We always love your laugh on the show. I don't know if we'll have a chance tonight to
I hope so.
get you laughing, but I'm just getting over a little cold, so hopefully that won't be too funny. I don't know.
I feel completely comfortable here. I'm beside Angie and you. What better spot could I possibly be in?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And you know,
Politician.
this is your 12th time on the show, Kathy.
That's
Your
surprising.
dozen times, so it's
Dozen
been a lot of
times.
fun.
And I hope I haven't misbehaved too much in the past. so.
Never. In fact, we always loved your laugh on the show
Thanks.
and your contribution to whatever we're discussing.
Thanks.
And in fact, you were on the school committee for how many years?
Six.
I got
6 years.
6 years, and you were chair periodically.
Twice, yep.
Twice. And you're also a longtime town meeting representative, right?
I think
Kathy?
I'm coming up on 10 years, so it's a long time.
You'll be
10
getting
years.
a certificate soon when you hit 10
Ooh.
years.
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah.
do?
I have mine somewhere. But, and any other committees that you're on in
Well,
Chelmsford that
I'm
you-
still a member of the League of Women Voters, and I'm on the Town Democratic Committee, and I just like to keep involved. And I also like to volunteer for the Chelmsford Theatre Art Parent Group, which is, supports the theater program at the high school.
And your daughter does so well in that. Last
She
year,
loved it.
I saw her in the Phantom of the Opera there at the high school,
Yep.
and she was fantastic.
Well,
And-
she played a very good small role. Small.
I mean,
Third person to the left there.
yeah,
whatever.
and the show was fantastic. Yes, yes.
Show.
In fact, she's in college now, right? A freshman.
Yeah, she's
at-
a freshman, and she's already been cast in her first college production, so
Isn't
she's
that
very
fantastic?
excited.
You're so lucky, Kathy. That's
Thank you.
wonderful. You and your husband, Jack, right?
Yeah.
Jack. Well, thanks, Kathy,
Thank
for
you,
being
Tom.
here. And we have my friend Matt Hanson with us tonight. How are you, Matt?
Hey Tom, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back again.
Oh, so great to have you back. And now you're the chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
Is a wonderful thing.
Yes, no,
And
it is.
how many years have you been a selectman now,
This
Matt?
is my 4th year.
Your
so
4th
I'm in my
year.
2nd term now, just re-elected in April. So.
And you're so young, too. How old are you?
25.
25 now, Matt. Wow. So you were elected when you were how old, Matt? The first
21.
time? 21,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you started in politics very young. Have you always been interested in politics?
Yeah, I've always been interested, and I first got involved with the town at 19 when I became a town meeting rep, and it's just I've added more since then. More committees and more responsibility, but I very much enjoy it, and I get to meet lots of great people like you, and come on shows like this and talk about the town. So I very much enjoy it.
Well, you do a great job, Matt. And not only as a selectman, but you're also a longtime town meeting representative, as you mentioned. You also received a new position at the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, being elected as new chairman, right?
Yes, that's right.
Isn't that wonderful, Matt, being such a young person? Because how many people are on that group? Is it 9 or something?
Well, there's a handful of member communities, and there's a planning board member and a selectman or city council from each town. Typical meeting probably has around 15 actual attendees go. The whole northern Middlesex area, and we do all sorts of regionalization initiatives, and the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, they also help out cities and towns with things like our master plans, traffic studies, and all sorts of things. So if you serve on a town board, a lot of the times you'll have sort of an expert from NIMCOG, as we call it, come in to assist your committee if they're working on something like the Center Village Master Plan or something like that.
Wonderful. Are you on any other committees at the moment, Matt? I know you're a liaison to
I'm
many
just
committees,
the
which
liaison.
is it
Well, actually,
responsible?
I'm also the chair of the Civic Committee, the Community Involvement
yes,
and
yeah.
Volunteerism and Chelmsford Committee. So that's
Yeah.
going very well. We just participated in the Chelmsford Common Day.
Yeah.
We collected about 20 names and emails of new people to put on our email distribution list so they can learn about volunteer opportunities in town and whatnot. We also distributed a number of the flyers, or well, the forms you can get, excuse me, from the town manager's office or on the internet to apply for an actual town board or committee. So
Wonderful.
we had a number of people take those as well. So
That's good.
And another thing that I like that you do, Matt, is your summaries of each selectman meeting, about a 10 or 15-minute video summary that you do on your own, at your own initiative. And it's great for people who don't have 2 or 3 hours or more to watch a selectman meeting. You go through and tell everybody what went on, issue by issue, item by item, and that's a great idea, Matt, and I hope you keep doing it personally.
yeah, I enjoy it. You know, I've got great feedback from it, and you know,
It is good.
I figure 10 or 15 minutes can, you know, saves people a lot of the time if they don't have the full 2 hours. I think part of the reason we don't get more people viewing the actual selectmen videos is that's a huge chunk of time. If you can't
Yes.
make it to the actual meeting and you want to try and catch up on what the selectmen did, that's a lot of time to commit. So.
Yeah,
true.
so what you're doing is wonderful.
Yeah, and I
We
try
can't
and, I was just going to say, try and do it in a very non-partisan way, if you will. I don't put how I, you know, really how I voted or how I felt about an issue. I just explain basically how the board voted and what action they took on the agenda items and
Yes.
how the meeting, you know, went basically. Just
Yeah,
so it's
good.
a recap.
Well, I hope you keep that up. Even next year, if they elect a new chairman, hopefully you'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
Because it's a great contribution, I think, to the town.
Thank you.
And also, just to let you're the same as Kathy tonight with your 12th appearance on the show.
Yes. Wow.
So thanks, Matt, again for being here.
Yeah, a dozen times. Thank you for having me.
And thank you, Ellen DiPasquale, for being here again. Your second time on the
My
show.
second time. I'm a newbie.
I never.
Yeah.
It's always great having you on the show,
Thank you.
Ellen, though.
Thank you. And you're not going to ask me about my age.
Oh.
Let's not go there.
Well, you certainly look wonderful, whatever your
Well,
age
thank
is. I
you.
have no idea. But Ellen has been very involved with the town in many ways, and right now, and she's on the show tonight primarily because she's the president of the Chelmsford Sewer Fairness Alliance, right?
Yes.
And so we'll be talking, the first issue tonight is the grinder pump topic, and that will be coming up for a discussion/vote at our upcoming town meeting, which is going to begin in about a week or two.
That's right.
And so it's going to be exciting. It's a big issue in town, and we'll love to discuss it with you, Ellen.
Terrific. Thank you.
And you also have your own company, right, or consulting firm that you do with
I
personnel
do.
or something?
I do. I'm a human resources consultant, so I work with primarily startup companies in high tech. But right now I'm working with a large firm that's doing a restructure, and I'm actually assisting with the restructure across the country.
Wow,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah, so it's fun.
Yeah.
As fun as that can be.
Are you on some other committee in town as well?
Oh, I'm on the personnel board.
The
for the
personnel
town.
board?
Yes. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And that's it.
Well,
committees.
thanks, Ellen.
That's it.
Yeah. I'm also in law school.
You are?
I am.
Oh,
I-
congratulations.
Yeah,
Good for
I'm in
you.
my second year. I went back. I decided, I needed something else to do.
Oh,
Could I
yeah.
ask where you're going, Ellen?
Mass School of Law
Oh,
in
wonderful.
Andover. It's terrific, and it caters to career folks, so folks that are actually into their careers, because a lot of folks add the specialty of whatever their career is in that area of law. So it's really interesting, very
Wow.
dynamic group, nice mix of people, lots of good discussion. Yeah, so really
That's
it's
fantastic. Well,
really interesting.
Good luck with that, because
Thank you.
taking the bar exam is a tough part at the end, right?
Yeah, I'm taking it one step at a time. I have midterms tonight, so I'll take that first. Midterms first, bar exam later.
Well, Ellen,
Good for you.
could you
Wow.
summarize what's going on with this grinder pump issue, please?
Certainly.
While I have a cough drop.
Certainly. Well, the grinder pump issue, and many folks may have been reading about it in the newspaper, but this project, the sewer project, had started many years ago in the probably planning in the late 60s, 70s, and then finally got going in the 80s, and has come right up until a couple of years ago. Things finally stopped a couple of years ago. The issue with the grinder pumps, to put it simply, was that when the town was putting the plan together to put the sewers in place, they had only planned on 60% of the town. And part of that came from the EPA coming in and saying that certain areas of town needed to come off the septic systems because of area waters, et cetera. So beyond that, as the project moved forward, the way the sewer project is set up, it was intended for gravity feed. So folks would hook into a pipe that goes down the middle of the street, and it would flow downhill. And in certain areas in town, there would be pumping stations that would then take the sewage from the areas of the gravity feed and send it off. And then in certain areas, because of topography, they couldn't put a gravity feed because it was a home that was lower or because of the rock makeup in the area or whatever. They then had a solution of what was called a grinder pump, which actually pumps the sewage from the home out into the area where it can then flow. However, as the project progressed and money went down, the Sewer Commission actually looked at other ways to save money because they kept coming back to the town to say, we need more money at town meeting as the project went on. And when you look at the numbers, the number of pump houses at about 1998, they didn't have very many more pump houses. I think since 1998 they only added one more pump house, so we had a certain large number of pump houses in town. And then from that point they switched the cost because it cost less to put the pump. So consider the pump house becoming a smaller pump that goes on the back of somebody's house. So it basically became, as they looked at neighborhoods, and many neighborhoods were not on the original plan, but the town made a decision at one point to go 100% sewage, and so the engineering plans weren't in place to actually put gravity feed in all of those locations, and because they weren't part of the original budgeting, it was more money than they had anticipated. And so from that point, they determined that many neighborhoods could use grinder pumps on their homes instead of the gravity feed. So what a grinder pump is a pumping station, a mini pumping station that basically goes on to the back of your house. And then it acts like a pumping station and pumps out to the street and pumps up and it goes down to the main pumping station. The issue for residents who have grinder pumps is that when you are a gravity feed resident, you tie in to the main core that goes down the street. As a grinder pump resident, I also tie in to the main pump that goes down the street. But I have an additional cost of electrical to add to my home to accommodate the pump being put on my home. And then the pump actually has an electrical feature, needs electricity to run. And so when the power goes out, the pump stops working. And when that happens, you have no sewage facilities in your home. So you can't run water, you can't flush, you can't do anything when the power goes out. So that has become a huge issue with the folks that have them because there's also the cost. If it breaks, you have to pay for it to be repaired. And right now, the only mode of, if it's under warranty, the only mode to have it repaired is a company called F.R. Mahoney, which is down in Rockland, Mass. And they have a monopoly on the situation. So if you call them, you pay $150 just for them to come to your home, and they want cash up front. So if you don't have spare cash, you don't get your sewer pump fixed.
Really?
And
That's amazing.
you know, and the point is, we just had another call. We've had several failures in the past couple of weeks, and we had another family call that had a failure just the other day. You might have gotten a copy of the email, and it over the weekend, holiday weekend, and it was a $550 bill for them to come out and do the repair because they charge more on a weekend, and it's a holiday weekend. So, and you have to have facilities to use your facilities. So, so if your pump breaks, the pump stops working. It only holds so much water, so you can't run any more water into it because it's not churning the water out, and it ends up backing up into your home. So whenever the power stops, you stop turning on faucets and you stop flushing. And when you have power outages for a week, that means, you know, you're
Some people
figuring.
have generators though, right? I guess.
Now, a
Or bought
generator,
generators, yeah.
if you have a generator, the generator can cause the pump to work. If you don't have a generator, you can call the town, and the town will come and pump you out. However, depending on the timing, if it's during a snowstorm, they can't get to you because their primary facility is to plow the roads. So they can't get to you. And when you have a major situation, you could go 3 or 4 days. The situation is at this point, when the town decided at about 1998 timeframe as the money went down and more pumps were put into place. We now have over 500 grinder pumps in town, and there are only 3 generator trucks that could actually get out to pump people out. So it's not an equitable mechanism to actually get to everybody, and it's not feasible to get to everybody. So the folks that are there are left with no facilities in their home. And I think the issues, we've been working with the town to try to come to some solutions to actually work. We've been working with the selectmen to, we had gone through a process of trying to come up with a policy, but the wording wasn't quite right, and we were kind of going on a dual track because we said we'll bring it to town meeting, and we thought we might be able to come to a policy first, but we're trying to get relief for the people that are out there. Every bill is money out of their pocket, and we've had folks that have spent tens of thousands of dollars in replacing these grinder pumps.
One family, tens of
Oh,
thousands
yes,
of dollars?
yes, yeah,
Right.
we've
I mean,
had several.
How expensive are these grinder pumps?
The grinder pump to replace is about $4,000.
So how did they end up with tens of thousands?
Well, because if every time it breaks down and you have to pay for the repair, it's out of your pocket.
So it might have been more than once, you're saying, for one
yes.
family?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
so they broke down quite often for.
That's the
particular
issue
family.
also. We've had quite a few breakdowns. The original wording from the company that provided us the pumps said these could last 20 years.
Right.
But gee, most of us have had breakdowns as soon as the warranty's up in 2.
Really?
Yeah, and so you're constantly having to pay for the repair. Now, a lot of people ask, well, I don't understand what the difference is between somebody who has a grinder pump and me. I pay my sewer taxes. Well, people who have the grinder pump pay their sewer taxes too, but then have to pay for the pump house that's on the back of their house. And so part of the issue that we've been discussing with the town is how do we resolve this so that I, as a resident, don't have to pay something extra because I have this pump on the back of my house, which was something that the town said you had to do to tie in to the sewer, only because that was the method that each neighborhood at the tail end, many folks ended up having to put the grinder pump on,
So
whether
there
they
was
needed
no-
it
no
or
choice.
not. No choice.
There was no
The
choice.
You
town-
have to connect. Now, Ellen, how many years ago did your neighborhood, this happen in your neighborhood? Because I remember at the time, there was a conversation at town meeting about the grinder issue. And I think it was just your neighborhood.
Well, it had come up in 1998, and a warrant article was written in 1998.
Right.
And it was not put up to vote at town meeting because for some reason it was said that the wording of the article was non-binding. And so we never quite figured out why that was. So as we went through this process, we worked with the town to make sure that our wording was appropriate so that it would be able to go to the floor. We wanted to make sure that it was viable.
Now it's on the warrant.
It
So
is.
on the whatever night it comes up, we'll be voting on after we hear presentations.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
My question is, and I've talked to, I guess I can mention his name, right?
Sure.
Dave Doyle.
Dave Foley.
Foley, I'm
Yes,
sorry,
yes.
I'm sorry. It is Dave Foley. I had a long conversation with him, and it was enlightening. And plus the information that he sent us, which opened up my eyes to certain things. Like my one question I asked him is, would there be a ceiling on the amount of times that the town or somebody would pay for the repair? You know, is there like 10 visits or something like that? Because I didn't understand how much it costs each time
Right.
that the
Right.
company would come out.
And from that perspective, I would say the whole point of the Sewer Fairness Alliance was really to provide equity, so that folks with gravity feed and folks with grinder pumps are treated no differently.
Right.
So
okay.
that if I should pay not $1 more than if I were hooked in with a gravity feed system. So everything that comes from that grinder pump should not be a cost that the resident incurs.
Okay.
And it's no different, and I give this analogy to people. I say, gee, it's like plowing your street. You pay taxes, your street gets plowed. Right. It would be like somebody calling and saying, Ellen, you live on a hill, and so for now, I'm not going to plow your street anymore. If you want me to plow your street so you can get out in the winter, you can pay a fee, or you can pay for the plowing, but otherwise we're not going to plow your street. Because just to give it the understanding that as a resident, you should get the same if you pay your tax. That's just to put it simply, but it's complicated because there are, issues of how do you, and this is what the selectmen are working with us to try to figure out, is how do you get, when you have a monopoly of an organization in FR Mahoney, that they're the only ones who can distribute the E1 parts from their location, but we may be able to work with other vendors locally that can actually come in and be available to pump out or to be available to repair, and trying to figure out, do you bill the resident directly, or does the resident submit the bill to the town, or does the individual come and fix your pump and bill the town? There are so many different ways it could go, but the bottom line issue is that anyone who has a grinder pump should not have to be treated any differently than someone who doesn't.
Okay, one more question. In
Sure.
the reading, it said that there was a statement that was made that if you got federal money for your project of sewerage in your community, that the town or the municipality should be paying for it. Is that something that can be looked into, or?
Well, there were
Or was
some
that true or not?
projects, it's
Yeah.
true, there were some projects with some smaller projects in other
Okay.
towns
Okay.
that they got the federal money, they used it for that, they got the pumps for that, and it said, if you do this, you're required to take, but you're talking a handful.
So you're not talking 500?
You're not talking 500 plus.
Okay.
And that's 500 plus
Right.
individual homes.
Right.
You also have condominium units, over 2,000 condominium units, and those condo owners also pay an extra fee. And when those pumps go, they have to pay to their condo unit to pay for the pumps to be replaced. So it's additional. Instead of just living in a condo unit, you now have to pay the fee for your grinder pump too. It's an extra appliance that's on the condo unit.
Has any thought been done into reducing the number of homes that require grinder pumps by re-evaluating what they
Yeah,
did?
we've talked
Because-
about that too, but that would be, the first step, I think, is to relieve the resident of the burden.
Right, I agree.
And
with
then
you
I
with
think,
this problem.
then as a town, I think we need to revisit and look at the whole scenario, because you look at these grinder pumps, and I don't think it could ever have been anticipated when the first one was put in, how much it was actually going to cost.
Right.
And, in the long term, you look at, digging 10 feet or 8 feet deep into the street to put a big sewer pipe in, and you say, wow, it's going to cost us X amount of dollars to do that. Yep, but that pipe lasts 100 years, right? And then you have grinder pumps that they say maybe they'll last 20, but you have all these breakages happening all over the place, and it draws upon the town's resources, or it draws upon the individual's pocketbook to pay for it. When you think about the cost of how many times that pump's going to break in 100 years, and you add that up, 500 plus or 2,000 units, that's a lot of money. And so although some of the homes that have the grinder pumps, it was necessary to put them in, there were a large number of them, more than half of them are there because it was cheaper to do a whole neighborhood with them than it was to do an individualized home assessment.
Well, the reason I asked that is because I was surprised to find out, I live on Thomas Drive, and I was surprised to find out that there were people on Thomas Drive, the lower end, that have grinder pumps. I'm like, that's not even hilly down there. It's like an angle like this, like a.
Should be a downhill slope,
It,
right?
it is a downhill slope, but it's a very, 2-degree down. It's not a dive. I know your neighborhood is very hilly.
We live on Robin Hill, which is
Right.
the highest point in town.
Right.
And we had, actually we went to the engineering firm when our neighborhood was slotted, and People had been told when the project began that if we did get sewage connection, it would be gravity feed. And then as it got closer to our phase, we were told, you're getting grinder pumps. And we said,
Where's
wait
that?
a minute.
Are you on a lower part of Robin Hill Road? Because what part?
No, we're on Robin Hill, so we
No,
live,
Yeah, I know, but there's lower and higher parts.
yeah, we're near the top. And
So why couldn't we have gravity
we
feed up near the
actually,
top?
well, it was interesting because my neighbor, who's a civil engineer, had actually drafted up a plan and shown how the pipe could go. There was a natural water easement. It was while the bike path was
Yeah.
being built. It could have gone right to the
Well,
Hunton
that's why
High
I
Street.
said, and there was discussion at town
Yes,
meeting.
there was,
When
and-
when your area came up, I remember
Yes,
it.
and it was the Weston and Sampson folks looked at it and said, this is a good plan, but we're doing grinder pumps. There was no discussion. It was going to cost, it would have cost more for them to put they thought of a pump station, but they said it would have cost more to put the pipe in than it was going to cost to put the pump houses on each house. And so therefore, what people don't understand is that the cost got transferred from having a pumping station to putting the pump to the resident. So the resident is now paying for those individualized
But
pumping stations,
I don't
in addition
understand
to the
why-
pump stations that are out there.
If the Robin Hill Road is higher, why you needed pumps anyway, the grinder pumps or whatever?
Because it wasn't part of the original plan of the engineering
So
plan
they
in the
stopped
town.
putting in the general houses, the pumping houses. They
Didn't want to put in another pumping house? Was that the problem?
The pumping
pumping
house,
station
the
or
pumping
whatever?
station would have cost, I want to say it was like $200,000 at the time or something like
Well,
that.
maybe if all the residents knew what the problems would have come in, you would have, I mean, somehow we could have come up with that money for it, right?
Well,
For
that was
pumping
part of what we
station.
talked about, but it was not, the other piece of it was there was a sewer commission that was in place, and the commission was running the project.
Yeah.
Right.
So the town management wasn't participating in the project while it was being run. And part of the issue with these discussions didn't take place until after the commission ceased.
Dissolved,
Right.
Yeah.
And then when
So
it
the sewer
dissolved,
commissioners
issues
made the
were-
decision, right?
Yes. Right.
Barry Balin and all
yes,
of those?
Yes, yes.
So they were a
Well, that's a-
separate entity
Right.
from the town. So
Well, they stated they were a separate entity from the town, and I think that, I'm not sure what I think the town still has had a responsibility, but
yeah,
didn't
we voted
step
on
over,
Right.
didn't step over that line, I think, for
Right.
whatever the
Right.
reasons were.
And their money, their resources, they accounted for their own resources too, I think.
Yes, they did.
Right.
Yes, they did.
But I specifically remember your neighborhood and the discussion coming up at town meeting, and then the discussion going forward.
And part
that
of
they
the
were just gonna
issue
do what they were gonna do.
with the Sewer Fairness Alliance is that most people are out there and they think they're all by themselves. They didn't know that anybody else had a grinder pump. And as we've
really?
and they thought they were in it alone. They're the only one out there that has this problem because some of them were the only house on their street. They didn't know that anybody else had this. And then they find out, wow, all these other people have this too. And so even to know who to call, we put up a website, and our website, tells resources, who to call. If your pump breaks, you can call the town. If there's an emergency, we load it in the town's emergency process. How do you get somebody if you need help, et cetera, et cetera.
I don't know if you're familiar, but I was surprised to hear houses on Smith Street have grinder pumps.
They're all over. They're all
But
over.
Smith Street, though, I mean, I don't know whether is it too level? I mean, I don't know.
Now, mind you, in certain areas,
do the
it
engineering.
is due to the topography. So
It is,
there's
yeah.
there's a reason that somebody's house couldn't tie in
Okay.
to the sewer, and then you had to have a grinder pump, but you didn't need at the tail end when you look at the numbers where the grinder pumps were exponentially larger in the project than we had.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
areas.
yeah. The pumping stations that came in the first 15, 20 years of the project, it was neighborhoods with a pumping station. In the last part, there was only one pumping station added, and the rest were from 1998, I think, till
All grinder
2011. It's all grinder pumps.
And so the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen have both voted not to endorse this article at town meeting.
Yes.
And I think, not to put words in my mouth, isn't it saying that they want a long-range study about the best way for it to be addressed? Is that the general perspective?
There are
Well,
two issues with it.
I think some people on the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen may feel that way. I mean, I certainly, when the Board of Selectmen were reviewing our policy, myself and Pat Wojcik did vote for the town to take on this responsibility, but obviously that's not enough. There's 5 of us, so you need 3. There is still, I'd say this, if it did pass at town meeting, I'm sure the town would still need to put together some type of committee or do something to figure out some of those logistical concerns regarding
I think so.
The
billing
details
and
that
some
we
other
just mentioned.
things.
Right.
Right.
They would have to.
Yeah, some of those would still need to be worked out. And I think there is still support, on the board for helping out the residents and for doing the right thing. I think at town meeting it's going to be a difficult battle because of some of these logistical concerns, and we know how town meeting is. If there are unanswered questions, I think a lot of the time people have a tendency to not want to vote on something yet. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's, actually I've heard a lot of rumors about different amendments that people are thinking to make to the article. I'm sure some people are going to want questions asked in one way or another. So I don't know if
sure
people are
there
going to
will
want a
be.
committee
I'm sure
set
there
up,
will be.
or another one of the issues that I've heard some people mention that the Board of Selectmen were sort of willing to overlook in a way that I don't think town meeting is the reduction in the betterment fee. I've heard rumors that somebody might be making an amendment at town meeting now to basically the history is people who got a grinder pump, most of them I believe got a reduced betterment fee, somewhere around the amount of $2,000 because they were going to have the additional cost of owning it.
Yeah.
So if the town then goes to take on the responsibility, some people think they should have to pay the full betterment fee if the town is going to be maintaining the grinder pump. So a
But in
town
the
meeting is probably going to
meantime,
take
they've
a
already
long
paid
time.
their-
But I
Yes,
feel
the-
that not everybody got the same
Same
deal.
deal.
They didn't.
And
That's
that is the
right.
problem
That
right
was
from
the issue.
beginning.
It was arbitrary.
It was
So
right.
That
there
is
were
too bad,
phases.
huh?
There were
It's really a
phases
shame.
of the
Yeah.
project, and at the beginning, the betterment fee was about $1,200. So
Right.
anybody who got connected at the beginning, it was $1,200. As it went up more than exponentially.
That's right.
Till the tail end of the project, it was $6,500
Right.
per household to tie in. And as we've gone through the contracts that different groups were given, some folks were actually given complete rebates on their betterment. Some people were given discounts on their betterment. There were so many different scenarios out there that you can't say that it was applied equally across the board, even from the betterment perspective. And we've said we don't even want to go down that path of looking at betterments, because if you do, you're going to find more people out there
That's
that
right.
got money back or didn't
exactly.
get money back or got something paid for or got tied in for free. We've heard so many different stories from the people who are part of the Sewer Fairness Alliance that were like, jeepers crow. It was, every piece was treated so arbitrarily.
That is
There was
amazing.
no consistency in the
That
application
a government
whatsoever.
committee, the sewer commission, could do something like that, do something arbitrarily like that, rather than have a consistent policy equal for everyone, right?
That's right. And
that's the way it should be.
and
How
we're
could you
even-
treat different people in town
And
differently?
we're finding that like neighborhoods were treated differently. So
It's-
when you look at topography, you
it's-
see some neighborhoods that are the same. One has a pumping station at the bottom of the hill, and another whole neighborhood has grinder pumps. So it was really, the whole process was monetarily driven toward the end of the process, and unfortunately, the town members at the tail end of that project who were not part of the original plan are bearing the cost of that. And here's one other point I want to make, because I find this interesting, that I know that a lot of folks have asked questions. So what we've been trying to do is to provide information for the
right.
town meeting reps. We've been contacting everybody.
Yep.
We've been putting information in the newspaper. We sent out the warrant article as well as backup documentation, and we've been engaging with the town meeting reps who have asked questions, and we're providing as many answers as we can, as much detail as possible. But an interesting point, if my grinder pump stops working, and I have 5 kids, so it's not a good
5
situation.
You lucky lady, you.
When my grinder pump stops working, it becomes a health issue.
Yes, it
I
does.
can't run the water, I can't flush the toilets, I can't do any of that, and I can't afford to go to a hotel.
Do you have a generator, could I
I
ask?
don't have a generator,
You don't have
and
a
I can't
generator.
afford a generator.
Oh my
And by
God.
the way, the generators have to be a minimum of 6,500
Yeah.
watts to
I
handle
heard
that.
that.
And
You
a
can-
lot of people had
Where did
generators.
I pay for mine? Under $1,000 I bought one.
Perhaps,
Costco. Yeah.
perhaps, but there are a lot of elderly on our street too who wouldn't even be able to operate that
Yeah, it
generator
would
to
take-
get the gas to operate the generator.
it takes-
And we had some neighbors who had bought generators, and then they were told they were getting a grinder pump. The generator doesn't operate the grinder pump; it's too small.
Too
So then they
small.
would have to go get another
bigger
generator,
Yeah.
and they can't afford it.
Okay.
And so and then again, you're buying the gas to pay for the generator, primarily to run the grinder pump.
Oh, yeah.
I had a septic tank before, and I didn't care if the power went out. We lit candles, and
Oh, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
we were
You did,
fine. I
right,
didn't
yeah.
need. I could still flush my toilets.
And
You
I
wanna-
bet that this year's, the last 18 months of weather conditions.
Oh, we've had
have
5-day outages at
right,
a time.
we have too. but
Yes.
unfortunately-
Now,
luckily
one-
we
the-
don't have a grinder pump, but I'm saying, I bet that has really focused it in for
Yes,
these people.
but
like,
the
wow.
point I
Yeah.
wanted to make, the interesting point I want to make is when people say, well, that's really too bad. I feel really bad for you. Why don't you get a generator? But the point is, if I were building on my house or if I had an addition going on my house, I would not be able to have residency in my house if I did not have a working toilet.
That's right.
I would not have a permit. I would not have a permit to live in my house if my toilet facilities are not working. Yet, it's okay if the power goes out or if it breaks, that I have to
another
deal with it
issue.
and stay in
That's
my
important.
home when I can't flush.
That's an important fact.
Right. You know, so
That is, because
and that's where we look at it from a Board of Health issue. That's a health issue,
Right.
and you have elderly who, you know,
Mm-hmm.
can't get around, and you can't go to a hotel every time your toilet stops
Yes.
working. You know.
In fact, one gentleman sent an email to probably everybody who was part of your group. He said he's getting up in age, so therefore he paid $7,000 for a generator, the kind that you could just turn on the gas.
Oh, right, the
National
gas.
You know, you
yeah.
probably
Yeah.
read his,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So that's quite expensive, you know, but could I ask on the presentation before we
Certainly.
wrap this up?
Yes.
Your article number 18, and I'm sure many of your alliance would probably want to come to town meeting to attend it when this is going to come up. Is anyone going to make a motion to bring this forward at town meeting, or do you think you'll just wait until Thursday or something and maybe people, because I hate to see them sit there all Monday and it won't come up on Monday probably.
I wouldn't think it would
wouldn't
come up
think.
on
Probably not.
Monday.
Yeah, it'll probably be
I don't
Thursday.
think so, yeah.
So what's your plan? Does anybody plan to bring it forward, or, I mean, push it up from, that happens sometimes.
It
but-
happens sometimes. I'm the one presenting it.
You're
so
presenting it, right? Okay.
I'll probably be there both nights.
Both nights,
but,
yeah, it's good to be there anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no.
And be prepared.
I think there are other articles that are going to have enough dialogue in the first night that,
I
well,
think
they
most-
always
The
do.
pro-
It always
they are.
takes.
probably
I was
will-
just going to say that's the art of understatement.
It always takes longer
And you
than
never know, you
expect.
can't
Probably be
predict
some.
which one is going to cause.
Exactly.
Right.
So
You
you'll be
cannot.
making the presentation,
Exactly.
Ellen. Will anybody else be there? Will any
I'm
attorney
sure-
be there or anything? Or
I'm sure
from your
there,
group? I
I'm
mean,
sure there are people that will be
Speaking
speaking.
on your
You know,
behalf.
we've talked to so many folks who say we support it, and
Right.
you know, we've talked to folks who say I have questions about it, and I may raise the question, and
Yeah.
if we can answer the questions, we'll answer the questions. And I think, you know, we want people to be educated about it.
Yes.
We certainly hope it passes. If it doesn't pass, we'll continue to educate people about it, and so that they understand. You would not want to be in the situation that these other residents are in. You would not want to switch places.
Right.
Well, could I ask just one other question?
Sure.
I watched the Board of Selectmen meeting when they discussed this, and you had like 62 people in the audience from your group. And so it was a 3-2 vote. And I understand that the 3 that voted not to recommend your article were kind of interested in setting up like a 7-person committee with various people, including some from your alliance and selectmen and that kind of thing. And that's what they would like to see now. Rather than go ahead with this particular article, they would rather that we form the committee and then we come back with a really good, viable solution. One of the primary concerns, I guess, is the liability to the town. There's no upper limit. We don't know what this will cost if this article does pass.
Right.
It could be quite expensive for the town of Chelmsford.
That's right. Right
And
now
where
it's
are we
quite
going to
expensive.
get the money?
But right now it's quite expensive for the resident,
Yeah,
and they
that's
should
true.
never have to be bearing that cost. They shouldn't have to be
Yeah.
bearing the cost. And
But do you understand where they were coming from,
I
though,
understand
right?
their
And the
thought
committee.
process, absolutely.
Do you
But
have
we
any-
did actually come up with figures, because we had come up with a number of figures that we shared. This process started a year ago with the Sewer Fairness Alliance, and we've been collecting as much data from people as we can to see what the charges have been, et cetera, and figured it out over time what that would be. And we ended up with very similar numbers to when Paul went to FR Mahoney and they came back with their numbers. They were the same. So basically, the numbers we were calculating were the same as what the town came up with, and then I think, you know, they may even added in a little bit more on the town to say that would be about $10 per household per year to cover it. In addition, you
For
have...
every household, you're
Yes.
talking not just a grinder pump,
Correct,
it's
every
household,
household.
yeah.
And then in
Yeah,
addition...
I read that, yeah.
We have the Sewer Enterprise Fund, which exists, and that's $4 million that exists in town right now, and the purpose of that fund is to fix issues with the sewer in town. So that is already an existing fund that is available, that could be used right now to
Who's
help people
controlled?
in
That's
town.
controlled by the
It's
town?
t-
Yes.
controlled by
town?
the town.
Since
town
it's now
controls that.
under the control of the town.
Correct.
Because the commission has ended.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
So
So
there's
now
selectmen are the
Paul
commissioners
and
now.
whomever he
Correct.
So there's
appoints
$4
is in
million
charge. That's-
there.
Correct.
So why do you think the Finance Committee voted not to recommend? Oh, I think it was unanimous or something.
Yeah.
Why did they do that?
I can't speak
I didn't
for
see
them.
their meeting, but
I could not be at that meeting, but I know that, you know, I think it's
Simple. It costs money and there's a liability. That's why they, and it's the same thing 3 of the 5 Board of Selectmen members voted it down. It's not a
But-
mystery, really. I mean,
I want to go back to
they
that
just,
word
you know, I like I
liability.
said, I was one in favor of it. I thought $10 per resident was reasonable, but
Right.
some other people just felt differently.
if that's what it comes up to, Matt, I think everybody would agree with you. I would think $10 per, I certainly wouldn't mind an extra 10 or even
Wouldn't even
$20.
Although I don't think that $10 was factored in for the condos, the 2,000 condos.
Oh,
I
right,
think
right.
that
Then
was
they
only
say the
500
condos wouldn't come in.
residentials,
So
I don't
even
know
if
what
it went
would
up
be
to
if you factored
20,
that in.
if you told me it would cost me $20 more a year, I don't have a grinder pump, I'm perfectly happy. Even $30, I don't care.
yeah.
But the thing is, you go up to hundreds of dollars, that's the problem. And that's
it
what
would
the
never
It would not
concern-
come anywhere near
but-
that
Yeah.
for the cost of it. And you know, it's a rolling thing, because they're going to keep breaking, and then that's where you just come back to the re-engineering. Would it be
Right.
less money
You're
to
sure?
re-engineer it?
That's right.
You
But
know?
I really think there might be some ways to mitigate it with re-engineering too.
Could
To
be.
minimize the
Right.
cost.
Yeah, I'd rather
Right,
see you
could
get
be.
rid of all these grinder pumps and
Because
have
the
like
other
a
thing
pumping
is-
station put in at each neighborhood that
Yeah.
needs it or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Could they retroactively do something like that?
Or do it over time.
Over time,
Yeah,
yeah,
you
a
do
little
it
at
all
a
at
time.
once, 'cause it'd
That
be a
way,
cost.
so you won't have the hassles
Big
anymore,
cost.
right, Kathy?
That would be my perspective or my opinion.
Yeah, if
And,
it's.
and part of
I'd
the
rather
issue
s-
about the cost is that the town saved a significant amount of money at the beginning of the project by shifting it over to the resident.
Yeah.
And they saved that money at that point in time. And now the resident has paid all this money and said, hey, wait a minute, you need to help us. And they say, oh no, that would cost money. It's like, but it's been costing money over here for only a group of residents. And you know, it's been said that we're a minority.
Well, I
But
think-
we're not a minority. 500,
Well,
I was
almost
just going to make a
600
point
homes.
about
Out of-
500 homes.
Out of how
is-
many?
I
There's
don't know.
16,000 households or
I
something?
think that's,
Or
well,
something like that.
Well, I
15,
don't want to do that math in my head.
16,500.
However,
Yeah.
one thing I'll say off the top of my
know what
head,
it is.
many elections in Chelmsford are decided by 50 or less votes. So
Oh,
you have a
yeah.
very valuable pack there.
Yeah.
500 households, perhaps 2 voters in a household. I think your voice should be heard.
Oh, definitely.
Because you're
Definitely.
powerful.
But
Yeah.
you know what? We're just asking for equity. We're just
Right,
asking
all.
for
but
fairness.
you're
Right,
pow-
you're
but
not doing
you
the
do
politics.
have
And Matt's
power,
been
and that should
working
not
with
be
us.
overlooked.
It's, you know,
politics.
we're trying to find solutions, and I think it's really just educating everybody so that they understand that we're not asking for something that is
that's.
outrageous or
Right.
unreasonable or more than what any citizen is due.
I think your points that you brought out tonight, like different things that occur when the grinder pump breaks down.
That it
I have a
backs into
question
your
on
house.
this liability. What liability? We have a liability when it becomes a health problem.
Right.
It's a
the
liability,
It's
yes.
definitely a liability.
It's a liability no matter
Yes.
what.
Yeah.
But I think there were some questions initially about if the town if the town assumed the responsibility to take care of your pump, and they came onto your land then
Yeah.
that's a liability that they're on your land. And the answer to that is it's not a liability because the town is an invitee, no different than a plumber,
That's right.
an electrician, the National Grid
Right.
guy, all of that. It's not a
Exactly.
liability to come onto my property to fix something that's there. If I tell you it's broken, can you come fix it? You know,
The other thing was the backup issue. If it backs
The
up into your
backup.
Oh,
home,
that was
is
that
the
was an
town
issue.
liable?
But that's another thing I should mention. We've had people who've tried to get riders to cover a grinder pump, and they've been told they can't get a rider to cover a grinder pump.
On their
So-
insurance.
On their insurance. So they're stuck with a device on their home that their insurance company won't even cover if it ruins their home. So what can you do about that?
But could I ask you a quick question though on that? If you see the potential liability though, Ellen, don't you, for the town? Just as a question, people are worried about what if there's various kinds of backups and problems with people's homes? Is
But I
the
wouldn't
town
have
going to
had
be
that
liable
issue.
to maybe up to $100,000 per home?
It could be,
This
but
kind of
then
thing.
that's the resident bearing that, and I didn't choose to get a grinder pump on my home. I had a perfectly working septic system, and I was told, you will get a grinder pump on your home within this time frame, or we'll put a lien on your property, and we'll take you to court if you don't sign up. So do you want to sign up, or do you not want to sign up?
Yeah.
What do you
that
say
was
to
a big
that?
mistake for the town to force you to do.
What do
I
you
think
say
you
to
should have
that?
been allowed to keep the septic tanks.
And
like
so,
that.
I
yeah.
don't think the state allowed us. That
The
was
state-
my
you couldn't do it.
understanding.
I think
State
you
told
had
Well,
to
I
us
would
have
have fought the
everybody
state on it. I
on
mean,
the
I would just
sewerage.
told, you
One
know,
way or
I
the other.
But
I
that, what
agree with that,
actually
but-
happened was a bylaw was passed. A bylaw was passed at some point during the process of this, and that said, if you don't
Right.
hook up, and it
You'd get the
became
lien.
part of the bylaw that you'd get the lien. So now that
Exactly.
bylaw is in place, and residents have been sued by the town.
Yes.
Oh, I know.
They lost and had to pay the town legal fees. So here you have someone who's forced to do something. They say, no, I really don't want this on my home, or
Yeah.
and then they get sued.
I read that there was 5 or something
Five
that
or
were brought
six
to
that were
court or
grouped
something.
together, yes.
Yeah, that's too bad. I don't think you should have been forced.
Right.
If you had a perfectly working septic system, and people say, well, the state forces you, but we have other
The
towns
state-
that aren't sewered.
the
so
state didn't force
septic
because it
tanks
was-
are allowed in Massachusetts.
And it was based on the EPA originally, and the EPA states that you don't have to hook up unless your septic system is failing,
Right.
or if you are transitioning your home and you have to go through Title VII.
Yeah.
You have to hook up at that point in time if you're selling.
Okay, yeah.
But that was not the case.
Yeah.
However,
Title V,
the
right?
town bylaw.
Title V, yeah.
Right. However, the town process was that
Okay.
You
you
had
hook
to,
in.
Yeah,
Septic
so
and
it's
the
going to be,
sewerage.
well, I hope everybody at home understands why we spend so much time on this one
I
issue,
think it was
because
worth
It's a
it.
big
it's a very
Thank
important
you.
issue in town. I think everything that was brought up tonight, all the questions that we all asked in Ellen's presentation, I think was outstanding, and hopefully will help all of us understand it better and be better prepared at town meeting. We don't know how it's going to go, Ellen,
No,
but
we don't. But you know what? It's a
wish you the
process.
best.
It's
Yeah.
a process, and we're all learning so much about, you know, the various situations that are happening across the country. We've been tapped by towns across the country in regard to this, from Florida to Delaware to, I mean, all over. We're getting emails. So,
Okay, wow, our time is really running short.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, no,
okay.
thank you.
It's
Thank you
worth
very
it.
much. It
It's
was
a
worth it,
big
yeah, 'cause
issue. It
I
is.
think this is the most important issue and the most contentious kind of, and important to discuss.
That's right.
We have a town meeting coming up, so it's really worth it to spend all this time on it. But another issue that has come up recently had to do with the students in New Hampshire. I read recently in the Lowell Sun that some of the, I think there were 3 football players or something, and they were at a weekend event, and they might have allegedly assaulted one of the young players. So there might actually be charges against these students, and then I read that the school department isn't really being forthcoming and letting people in town know what's going on. Now, we have 2 former school committee members here, so they might have
I realized the camera was going to shift.
some additional.
I know, I said, one of us will get tapped for that.
Well, so maybe Kathy and Angie might have some perspective on this. One, what do you think about this incident? First of all, do they have to go away for all these weekends all the time? I don't know. 2, what about the school department? Are they being as forthcoming as they should be with the townspeople of Chelmsford even though no arrests have been made yet, couldn't they have talked a little bit about it so
Well, I think
people who have
Go ahead.
students
I'm
in the
gonna say.
school could be less concerned?
I think it's always a challenge to present the exact perfect message when things like this happen.
Right.
But I think first you want to know that this seems to be a very isolated incident. We don't have a reputation for being the type of school system that condones any type of bad behavior. And I don't think that numerous athletes and academic students who go on all sorts of trips and represent Chelmsford very well should be held accountable for a small fraction of students that misbehaved or
Yeah.
acted illegally. But I think you have to keep in mind when they present the information, there is strict privacy rules. You cannot say, little Johnny did this and identify Johnny, and this is what we did to Johnny, because that is his private record. So you could say, these are the policies of the school
Yeah.
department. Incident number 1, this is what has happened. We have addressed this issue. And basically, that is what the school department has acknowledged, that there was an incident, we have done an internal investigation, and we have addressed it. That's what they've said. And so I think you have to keep in mind that these are minors, and there are strict privacy regulations.
Oh yeah, no one's asking for their names to have
Right.
been published
No.
previously or anything like
Right,
that.
no, their names
But
have
some
never come, but you
parents
can't
wanted
really
to know
say.
what went on, kind of, and I understand from some parents that they
Tom,
weren't really
I think
told.
right now for us here in Chelmsford to say something when we're not really involved in the investigation. All right,
yeah.
you got the hearsay. You called the kids in, the kids tell you what took place with their coaches and everything. But the investigation is up there.
Yeah.
For us, I think, for us to say, well, this is what took place and everything else is wrong.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the facts. You
Yes.
could be misleading.
Yes.
And then you create a situation on, well, it was the policy held up by the school department. The boys are off the football team.
Well, see, just information like that is
They're off
useful.
the football team.
I mean,
so
that's good.
That's
That-
good. Now,
yeah.
the next decision should be, I think, is, and I agree with you, and I hate to see it not happen, but do they have to have these camps?
Right,
You
yeah.
know, why couldn't we have it locally at the high school or whatever? But denying these
and going
kids
away
something
for the
that's
whole
been a
weekend,
tradition for
which-
a long time, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have to.
Yeah.
I'm not on the
Which is
school
co-
committee, and
Yeah.
I don't know
Oh, no, I know.
how it
Well,
affects
thank you. I
your
appreciate
team. You know, so I think I would be afraid for us to say any more information because
Oh, yes,
it's,
no, I agree.
it's the investigation is up there.
You're right, Angie, I agree.
That's where I
agree.
feel.
I agree. I just wanted to bring that,
Yeah,
because many
no,
people
I-
have asked the
I know.
question.
I
in
think that you have to follow policy. First of
right.
all, there's the state law, and you must follow the state law, but you have to follow the policy that's been established.
Yeah.
So it's within the policies of behavior of student athletes that perhaps can be reviewed and tightened up, so that one incident that happens, say in football season, that student, whatever it may be, alcohol or whatever, that incident follows them throughout the academic year. It's not like, okay, that happened when I was in football, but now I can go on and misbehave in this sport, and I'm still on episode number 1. So I think that policy really needs to be reviewed, and you could look at something topical in the newspaper now about the girl from North Andover. This even made ESPN
Yes.
News, where a friend of hers was at a party, called her up and said, I've had too much to drink, I don't want to drive, will you come get me? So this girl was not drinking, she wasn't doing anything she wasn't supposed to do other than she drove someplace to pick up a friend. When she got there, the police officers were there. And now she has lost her captaincy of the volleyball team and been suspended for like 4 weeks or something.
I know.
So, but if you go
that's-
online
yeah.
and you look at North Andover's policy, it's very clear, very strict, and if you go on, you look at Chelmsford's policy, it's a little
clear.
more fluid, so it could perhaps be updated.
Yeah, good, thank you, Kathy.
So that's my.
And it's too bad about that young lady. That
Oh,
seems
it's
totally
ridiculous.
unjust
Doing something
on
to
her
help.
part. Another
That's
quick
it.
topic that's kind of getting a lot of discussion now, it has to do with the fire station location, right? The old fire station on North Road, you know, that'll be closing soon because we're going to have the new fire station next year.
Right.
And a lot of people are commenting what they think should be done with that particular location. We found out that the Chelmsford Housing Authority is no longer going to move in there if we move the Dutton House there, so that's not an
Oh,
option
okay,
anymore.
okay.
They don't want to do that. So now the question is, what should the town do with that property? Any thoughts on that? If you don't have any thoughts, that's fine.
You're
on
talking
that.
about the old one right
The old
across
fire
from the
station,
corner.
yeah, yes. What should the town do with that building? Should we keep it and lease it, maybe have somebody renovate it? Should low-cost housing be made there, any kind of housing? Should it be allowed to be purchased by a private developer and maybe torn down? Should a park be made out of it? All these suggestions have been coming in. Should a parking lot, a suggestion came in, a number of them on Facebook today about a parking lot,
Oh,
maybe
did
with
they?
some trees and landscaping, because we need more parking in the center.
We do.
No, if you don't have any thoughts on that.
I would say
You're right.
no parking lot. I mean, like, it sounds like some sort of Joni Mitchell song doing the downtown Chelmsford. I mean, in many respects, the outside, the facade is an architectural gem, and maybe some of that could be saved. Maybe you could do a museum or something that would
Concord did-
enhance, just like
Yeah.
they enhance the beauty of the location.
It's, yeah,
I
it's not
agree.
an unattractive
Something,
building.
something in
agree.
that category, not a
Concord did it.
parking lot. Sorry.
A woman wrote that though on the patch recently, and I posted
Yeah.
on Facebook. You know, in Concord, they've had an old firehouse. I think that they remodeled and made something. I'm not sure if it's a restaurant or whatever, but you know,
It was a
something-
restaurant.
So you know, so you
Yeah.
keep the nice facade, and all of it could be redone inside and updated, modernized. So maybe I'd like to see something like that happen. So you keep a building, you put some nice landscaping, whatever. But
Right, something that adds to the
I don't want it to go to a
character.
private
It does,
owner
it
to
does to
do
the-
whatever they want with it. I think that would be terrible. That's a very important part of town.
Well, it's also
I think.
still part of the historic district,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
So I think if somebody did come in and purchase it
They'd have
or
to,
acquire it, they would have to fall within
Right.
the guidelines
Strict
of
guidelines.
keeping it as a something that
Well,
would fall within the
As long as they put-
parameters of
Could
a
I ask
historic
Matt as a
building.
selectman just quickly?
Yeah,
Just
you
so
can
we
add
know.
whatever you want.
I was originally definitely in favor of moving the Dutton House there because the Dutton House would fit in very well there.
Yes,
But short of that happening, which I guess is still a small possibility
Yeah.
that could happen, but short of that, I think there is no reason really to tear the building down. Might not be able to support the weight of fire trucks, but it
Oh, yeah.
can support other uses, whether it is, internally renovated into offices or a restaurant or something
whatever,
else.
Yeah,
It'd be a good use
Yeah.
for it without having to actually tear
Well,
the building down.
you
I
know,
agree.
Listen, Kathy, you said like a museum. It could be, but I think another thing is it could be leave the facade up as it is, but storage, because the farmers market, those people have to transfer
They use the
tables and stuff back and forth. Ideal right there.
Yeah.
Anybody who uses the concerts and so forth, I don't know where they.
Oh, the
do you
band.
know where they
They-
store
I
them?
used to
don't
put
know
them
where
in
they
the
put them.
canal
Chairs
house.
and
Yeah,
everything
where did they
else?
put the band
I don't know
instruments?
where
Oh,
they
I think
put
they're
them in.
using
They used to be in the
they're using
canal
the
house.
church
Yeah.
now since
Oh,
they
the
changed
church.
it.
I
I
think
mean,
they
but
have to
that would
look
be
at
Yeah,
fine.
storage. Yeah, you're
You know,
right.
some kind of a
Tables and
thing
everything.
for, and
And
then
it
the
could be
parades.
beautified a little bit too. I don't know,
You
somehow.
know, I mean,
And it's pretty. I mean, really,
It
if
is
you
nice.
step
It is.
aside the fact that it's a firehouse,
Yeah.
it
Oh.
it's appealing to the eye.
It could
could
be
leave
used
it.
for storage in an ice cream parlor.
Ice cream. Why don't we end on that note? That's a great idea, ice cream. Well, thank you for the wonderful discussion. I really
Thank you.
appreciate you all being
Thank
here.
you.
Thanks very much, Angie Taranto.
Thank you.
And thanks, Kathy Duffett, for being here again. Thanks, Matt Hanson.
Tom, thanks for having me back.
Thanks. And thank you, Ellen DiPasquale.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
It's always great. Yeah, let your lines know about it, right? 50 minutes we
I
spent
will.
on it.
I will.
So they better all
Really?
catch it, hopefully.
Pretty much.
And thank you, George and Larry, our camera people, and our great
Thank you.
director, Pete Padula. I hope to see you all around town soon. And don't forget Halloween this coming Saturday, October 19th at the Parley Corn Maze. The Chelmsford Dog Association people are going to be there. I'll be there with the Lowell Humane Society. So thank you very much for watching. I'm Tom Christiano. Ciao.